name is Sarah, and welcome to the Bookish Knitter, and welcome to a weekly reading update. This is for week number 4 of 2025, and I finished 6 books this week, you guys. I am very pleased with that. Now, 2 of them were Nancy Drew books, but that's fine. They're still books. And 2 were Canadian authors, which is always fun. So yeah, I had a really great reading week. I had a 5-star read, which was fantastic. That's always enjoyable. And I had some enjoyable reads. My reading has been great this year. I know it's not a contest or anything like that, but I have finished 17 books so far this month. I'm very, very pleased with that. Again, not a contest, but it's more the fact that I've really been enjoying the books that I have been reading, and that's what really matters. So yeah, let's jump in and talk about the books that I finished this week. So the first book that I did finish was Smile and Say Murder by Carolyn Keene. This is Nancy Drew Files number 4, and I gave this one 3 stars. So in this book, Nancy ends up going undercover at a teen magazine in Chicago, like at the publisher's headquarters in Chicago, because the owner of the magazine is being threatened with is having death threats against her. So Nancy goes undercover as an intern to find out what's going on, and she brings Ned in to help her. Ned is her longtime boyfriend. Now, the main issue that I had with this book was actually the relationship between Ned and Nancy, because in the first book in this series, now these do kind of build off each other, but you don't have to necessarily read them in order, but they do reference things that happen in previous books, and this one does. So it talks about in the first book in the series that Nancy went undercover at a high school, and she ended up kind of having this like little relationship with this guy that she met there. And he, there was some, I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know what the relationship between Nancy and Ned is, but it just seems very weird to me because, like, she was kissing this guy, this guy in the book when she was in high school. And so to me, that's cheating as far as I'm concerned, but whatever. Ned and Nancy ended up making up, and everything was fine. And then, in this book, he's kind of, has the sweets, if you will, for this woman or girl, or not woman, girl who works at the magazine. She's also an intern. And Nancy gets her knickers in a knot. Like, you did the same thing. So, kind of a double standard thing. And that's what really kind of bothered me. The story itself was really good. I like the mystery and all that stuff. But it was the relationship between Ned and Nancy that really kind of put this one down a little bit for me. I just found it very odd. And I think later in the run of the series, they end up actually splitting up. The other thing I found really, really funny in this book. So later in this line, so during the same time that this line was being written in the 80s, there was also the Hardy Boys, I think it was the Hardy Boys case files, but they were the same size. They were these mass market paperbacks, and they were more modern day Hardy Boys stories. And then later on, there is a series of books that are written called Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys Super Mysteries. So it's Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys together solving mysteries. Those are my favorites. I absolutely love them. I've been slowly collecting them. I am going to read them in publication order. So as they come up in this line, I'm going to read them. Eventually, in years to come, I would like to read the Hardy Boys ones. I never read the Hardy Boys ones, but I think I'd like to. But I'm going to save those for later, one thing at a time. But the thing that was funny in this one is that the woman who's has the death threats against her, the owner of this magazine, she's a big mystery reader, and Nancy's in her office and she's got all these mystery books up on the wall. And Nancy points out the fact that the woman likes to read Hardy Boys books. I'm like, you're part of the same universe. In your universe, the Hardy Boys are real people. They're not stories. That just made me chuckle, and I had to reread that paragraph like 3 times. Like, am I reading this correctly? But yeah, they're referencing Nancy or Hardy Boys books in this book, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I enjoyed it. 3 stars. The next one that I finished was one of my library books. The other 2 library books, the Tara Lakowski, and the Agatha Christie are going to go back to the library. I'm probably going to take those back today. I'm not going to get to them, but I may take out a few more books. We shall see. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I did finish Remember Me Tomorrow by Farah Heron. This one I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. I am going to mention a spice rating in this one just because there is a romance in here, but this is Cupcake. It is a YA, and I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, you don't really need to, but no, nowadays, you need to mention that in a YA novel, whether it is, there is what the spice rating is, because some of these YA novels can get pretty spicy. So this is a cupcake. Nothing really happens. Some kissing, some hugging, that's about it. So this is the story of Eliza and Jay. And basically, what I love is that this takes place in Toronto at a fictional university called the Toronto City University or something. And Eliza is a first-year student, and she is there. Her and her best friend went to the university together, and they've had a falling out. And she decides to switch dorms. So she ends up moving into the dorm of this boy who went missing 5 months earlier. So when she switches dorms, it's like later in the year, it's like March. And this boy went missing in like October of the previous, like of the year before. And so he's been gone for like 9 months. And so she moves into his old dorm. And while she's in there, they have this, it's called the Res Connect thing. And it's like an app on your phone. And it is used for you to be able to communicate with your roommate. And that's pretty much all it's for. You can only communicate with your roommate. You can't communicate with anybody else, blah, 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 blah. So while she's in this room, she suddenly starts getting these text messages from Jay, the boy who went missing 5 months earlier. So it's very much a time slip kind of a book where, he's in the past, like he's in October and he's communicating with her in March. So she knows he's gone missing. She eventually tells him that he goes missing. So then they're trying to figure out what happens to keep him alive, basically to keep him from going missing. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great, great story. I did give it 4 stars because I have to be honest, some of it went a little over my head. I didn't quite understand how these things were working, like the time jumps and this and that and the other thing. And there were a bunch of characters but overall the story itself, I mean, it was an enjoyable book. And I did understand like the ending. I understood what happened and stuff like that. I didn't particularly love some of the things that happened at the end, but it was still a really good book. Again, a Canadian author. I think she's from Toronto. If I'm not mistaken. And this is not the first book by her that I have read. I have also read The Chai Factor, which was an adult novel. So this one, like I said, was YA. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So again, as I've been mentioning, if you are doing like an around the world challenge and you need a book that takes place in Canada, this one would definitely fit the bill. So yeah, I enjoyed it. 4 stars. The next one that I finished was They're Unexpected Forever by Laurel Greer. This is Harlequin Special Edition novel number 3060, published originally in September of 2024. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one has 3 chili peppers. So this one has like 3+ open door love scenes, just so you guys are aware. Like I said, I gave this one 3.5 stars. I didn't particularly... Oh, and this is the 3rd book, I think. I didn't write it down. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't write it down. 3rd book in the Love at Hideaway Wharf series, I think. Now, I didn't particularly love this one. So this is definitely geared towards a specific type of audience. And it's the type of audience who has children, who loves children, who is all about their kids. This one is very much a baby-centric book. Just for those of you who either chose not to have children or... for unfortunate reasons can't and you want to, and something like having a baby or whatever is, miscarriages and things like that, I can understand how that could definitely be a trigger for some people. Do take caution going into this book because miscarriage is discussed. The other thing is that she gets pregnant very quickly. And it's basically the entire story is about the pregnancy and their relationship. And they are, our main characters are Mateus and Violet. So they have been friends for years and years. They've been living on this island together and they've been having this relationship for like 5 years. So 5 years earlier, her fiance and his best friend, which are the same person, walked out on her wedding. So like his name was Lawson and it was the day before they were getting married and he just left her basically at the altar. And he was also best friends with Mateus and they were going to open a brewery together. So to console themselves, the two of them kind of hooked up. And it became a thing that on the anniversary of the wedding, the two of them would have this hookup. And it became like a regular thing every year, right? So now her brother's getting married and, emotions are kind of running high and they end up hooking up again. And what happens? She gets pregnant. This is not a surprise. Look at the cover of the book. So basically it's the two of them navigating the relationship. Now, the one thing I did like is that this did stretch out the entire, basically, sorry if you can, Presley's sneezing. We'll give him just a second. You okay now, bud? Poor guy. Oh, nope. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. So anyway, so she ends up getting pregnant. And like I said, the one thing that I really liked is that this does go throughout the entire length of the pregnancy. So it's not like a quick romance. It's the two of them like realizing that, yes, they do have feelings for each other and this, that, and the other thing. She's a midwife. He runs a brewery. So again, she's a midwife. So babies are kind of a big deal. And, so like I said, just take it like with a grain of salt going in, depending on your personal preferences and your life experience and what may or may not constitute something that you would enjoy, reading about. It was a good story and I liked it a lot. However, someone who, for medical reasons, decided not to have children, this one is kind of one that was like, you know what, like, okay, and I'm going to get on a little soapbox right here. Kids are not everything, like if you choose to be childless, that's awesome. But I felt like this book, because kids are discussed a lot in this book, that it seems to be one of those things that I found this with the Virgin River series as well with Robin Carr, that it's like babies are being pushed. Like you can't be a family unless you have a baby. Now, I'm not saying that this is what this book said, but sometimes I got that inkling of a feeling like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's me and my husband are a family. You as a single person living by yourself are a family. You and your dog are a family. You know what I mean? Like you and your 3 cats are a family. You and your grandmother that you're living with are a family. Like you don't need this traditional nuclear unit to be a family. And, sometimes that's my one thing with category romance is that I find that children and babies are pushed. And again, I'm using big air quotes on this one quite a bit. And I do like that we're getting away from that a bit. And I'm going to talk about that in a book that I read yesterday, the book that I finished yesterday. I'm going to mention something about that I really liked what was done. So yeah, but I did enjoy this book and I am going to go back and read the rest of the series. I really like Laurel Greer's writing. I think she's fantastic. And it was no issue with the book, nothing like that. This was personally me. This was my personal thing because I'm not a parent. I'm never going to be a parent. I was never going to be a parent. So baby stories tend not to be my thing, basically. So yeah. So the next book that I finished was another Nancy Drew, and that was Hit and Run Holiday by Carolyn, Keene, number 5 in the Nancy Drew Files series. So in this one, Nancy travels to Fort Lauderdale, Florida for a vacation, and of course gets tangled up in a mystery. There is a friend of hers from River Heights that is down there, and she stayed down for an extra week, and her mother, this friend's mother, contacted Nancy and said, would you go check out on Kim because Kim hasn't been answering my phone calls. So Nancy goes over to Kim's hotel to check on her. And Kim is all freaked out and she's, something obviously bad is happening. So Nancy kind of follows her to the hotel trying to find out what's going on. And then Kim gets hit by a car and ends up in hospital. And then the case kind of takes off from there. This deals with migrant workers, like people coming over the border to work about a woman who is like kidnapping these immigrants coming over the border and forcing them to work in her like farming operation or whatever it is. And Nancy's trying to find out what's going on. So that's the story of it. That's basically the plot of this book. I enjoyed it. I gave this one, what did I give this one? I gave this one 3.5 stars. Ned does not make an appearance in this one. Nancy also does not have any relationships in this book. There's no like untowards, there's a guy who she goes out on a date, if you will, like windsurfing with this guy, but so yeah. Anyway, I liked it. 3.5 stars. I am enjoying my reread through these. I am reading one more now, and then in February, we're going to be doing the first 5 books in the Sweet Valley High series. So yay on that one. And then my 5-star read. I love this book so much, you guys. Into the Woods by Jenny Holiday. So, like I said, this was a 5-star book. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Sorry, as I mentioned, I think in one of my daily vlogs, this is a sort of, kind of, not really companion novel to Canadian Boyfriend, because the female lead in this, Gretchen, is best friends with Rory, who is the female lead in Canadian Boyfriend. You do not have to have read one to read the other. Rory does make an appearance in this book. I have not read Canadian Boyfriend. I'm going to go back and read it, probably maybe in March. My docket is already filled for February, so probably in March. But yeah, so this is the story of Gretchen and Teddy. And Gretchen is about to hit her 40th birthday, and she has given up on men, and she is going to kind of just build her empire. She is a dance teacher. She has a dance school for children, and she's going to be expanding she's buying a building, and she's going to start a Pilates and a yoga studio, and she's going to do all these things, and she's very excited. And then her best friend Rory is like, hey, there's this summer camp for kids that needs a in-house, like, dance teacher or something like that. I think they call it an artist in residence. And, you know, the original person who was going to do it had to drop out for reasons. And Rory's like, hey, you should do it. And Gretchen's like, well, you know, and she's like, well, but you don't really have anything to do over the summer. Like, she's got her dance school, but she can get other people to sub in. It might be a good idea to step back and do this. So Gretchen decides to go and do it. So Teddy is the front man, or not the front man. He is a guitarist for a band called Concrete Temple. And they just recently, the band has broken apart and there was some issues that went on. And the same thing, Teddy kind of gets dragged into this camp called Wild Arts. So he ends up at the camp as well. So him and Gretchen, originally they don't really get along very well. And, you know, she's kind of very sunshine and rainbows and he's very not. But the relationship eventually develops between the two of them. I really, really loved the discussions between the two of them. They had so much in common from their childhoods, a lot of childhood trauma that is discussed in this book. The growth of both Gretchen and Teddy, both personally and as a couple, was fantastic. That's what I really, really loved about this book. I loved the camp setting. I thought it was great. I loved the other characters. Not only some of the other artists in residence, but also some of the kids that you meet who are at this camp are delightful. Rory is a great character. I loved Teddy's sister, even though you don't actually meet her. You only really meet her over FaceTime when he's FaceTiming with her. And I'm really kind of hoping that Jenny Holiday continues this series, if you will, and writes his sister's story, because I want to read his sister's story, because she's got kind of a lot going on, and I would love to see her character growth in a book. So just putting that out there in the universe, if you ever see this Jenny Holiday. So anyway, yeah, I really, really, really love this book. This one, for spice rating, just so you guys are all aware, surprised me actually. This was a 2 chili pepper. I thought it was going to be higher. For some reason, I thought this book was going to be spicier. Now, basically, for the second half of the book, the two, Teddy and Gretchen, end up having a camp relationship, if you will. Friends with benefits, I guess, is what you call it. However, nothing is really on page. There's a couple of scenes that are open door, but that's it. Most of it is just kind of like, hey, yeah, they spend every night together. That's all that's discussed. The bulk of the story is I just loved this. I loved it. I loved it. Thought it was great. The love scenes themselves are fantastic as well. Very well done. Purposefully put in the book exactly what I always say. Like, if you're going to write that kind of a scene in a book, it needs to have a purpose and to move the story forward. And both of them did. And yeah, loved, loved, loved. Pick this one up, guys. You will not be disappointed. It was so good. And the last book that I finished last night at 11 o'clock was What Happens at the Beach by Rachael Stewart. This is Harlequin romance number 4939. Its publication date is March of 2025. So I got the e-arc of this from Rachael Stewart. I am part of her ARC team. And yeah, this was great. I gave this book 4.5 stars, and it is a 2 chili pepper book as well. So there is actually only really one love scene, like open door love scene in this book. And again, as Rachael Stewart does, she does them very, very well. And again, it was used to move the story forward. Loved it, loved it, loved it. So this is the story of Faye and Rick. So Faye has ended up in Bondi Beach in Australia, which is somewhere near Sydney. And she's from Melbourne, which is further away if you look at a map of Australia, which I had to because I didn't know how far away they were from each other. So basically, she has arrived there because her sister Sasha just got married, and she's off on her honeymoon, and for 6 weeks to the Caribbean, as you do when you are very wealthy, and she needs someone to look after her dog, Precious. So Faye shows up to look after the dog and house sit as well. So now, the one thing I did want to mention is that Faye's it's not her sister, it's her stepsister Sasha. Sasha actually, she has her own book or her own story, but it's available on the Harlequin website. I will leave it linked below. It's a short story that Rachael wrote, and it is a sapphic romance, and it's delightful. So go ahead and give it a read. Like I said, I'll link it below so you can read. You don't have to read it first, but you know you should definitely. I haven't finished it. I've started it. I started reading a little bit of it last night, and then I got tired and went to bed. But I do plan on finishing it. What I've read so far, of course, I've loved. But like I said, it is a sapphic romance, so you can check that out. But you don't have to have read it to have read this one. But it is a nice little addendum to the story. So anyway, so she's there to house sit and dog sit. And she has kind of gone through a bit of issues. She has a traumatic childhood as well. Her father kind of basically didn't acknowledge her. He was a very wealthy man who had a family already, and he had an affair with her mother and tried to set them up and kind of told them how to live their life, threw money at the problem basically. And she's never liked wealthy men because she feels that that's what they do. And so then anyway, she meets Rick, who is a very wealthy man. And, they start a relationship and, things happen. And it was a really good story. Now, as I was mentioning in the Laurel Greer book, the one thing that I like, and I don't want to give too much away to the ending of this book, but I mean, it's a romance, right? How it's going to end, that Faye and Rick are going to end up together. But they start discussing children. And what I loved is that it was brought up like, hey, why don't we foster some kids? And I'm like, yes. I love, because that again, the one thing I love category romance books, and I will promote them all day long. But the one thing I do find is they tend to really push babies, and they tend to push babies that the people themselves have, not adopted, not fostered, not, it's like, oh, I want my child. I want our child. I want to have our, you know what I mean? And I get it. I understand that. I'm not dismissing that if that's your personal thoughts. However, there are other options to have children if you choose to have children. And I think that is now becoming more of a thing now. And they're talking about that more. And I love the fact that Rachael discussed that in this book, that she brought up that hey, that's what they should do, is foster a bunch of children. And it made my heart so happy. And it took this book from a 4-star to a 4.5-star for me, to be completely honest. Just because it was it's one of those things that there are some people who just can't have their own children, like children from, you know what I mean? But like I said, there's other options. I don't want to get on a soapbox, but yeah. So anyway, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So anyway, what am I reading this week? Well, tune into my daily vlogs to find out. I'm not going to share it because I am filming a vlog today. So you're going to see that later tonight. You'll see what I'm reading. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books and what you thought about them. If you plan on picking any of them up, do let me know. What did you read this week? What was your favorite book that you read this week? And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.